Welcome to the Just Jesus podcast, where we talk about all things simply that, just Jesus. Today, we're going to break down the agenda behind HeGetsUs, and also we're going to talk about some teachings of Jesus that can impact your life today. All that and more next on the Just Jesus podcast. All right, I'm working on that. I'm trying to get the opening down. I don't know. Hopefully it sounded okay, but it's good to have you. Welcome to the Just Jesus podcast. I'm your host, Joel Wright. Good to have you. And it is simply that. If you're new to us here at Just Jesus podcast, it is simply that. It's just Jesus. We talk about Jesus and everything pertaining to him, past, present, future. More importantly, the relevancy of Jesus to us today. So this is not designed to be a religious podcast. It's not designed to be about a church or any kind of particular theological backing. This is simply about Jesus. And that's the passion and the desire behind that. So it's good to have you. We took a break last week. It was my kids' spring break. So I was doing stuff with them and decided to take a week off from the podcast. And so we are back today with a brand new episode. But if you haven't watched or listened to our previous episodes, I would encourage you to go back and do so. We just finished sort of a little mini series, a 3-part series within the Just Jesus podcast, where we talked about sort of the world in which Jesus stepped into and how that kind of parallels some things that we face today. And so hopefully for those of you that watched or listened to it, you were, it was encouraging and challenging all at the same time. But if you haven't done that, I would encourage you to go back and do so at this time. And some bigger changes coming to the podcast. We'll see. I'm kind of pondering a couple of changes that are going to take place that will be sort of bigger changes to the podcast. It's been awesome so far. This is, I believe, episode number 7, and a lot of positive feedback. And thank you for all of those of you that have been already faithful listening to the podcast and helping spread the message. And as always, before you get too far, you can help spread that message by liking this podcast, simply clicking on that thumbs up button. Also, you can subscribe if you have not yet done so, and then also share it. All those things kind of help promote this podcast and get it to more listeners, more people to get an opportunity to engage. And my desire here is to grow this and to increase this message further. And I've got a couple of things that I'd like to do, but I think it would be better if we could get some momentum before doing those things. So anyways, this is about just Jesus, so let's not get into all that today. Maybe another time, another place, but it's good to have you. And I said it before, but I'll say it again. If you're new to Just Jesus, it's simply that. It's just Jesus. That's what we do here. We talk about Jesus, and we keep it real simple. And I want to kind of, we've been a little more systematic the last couple of episodes, but I want to be a little more, I've got a couple things I want to do today, and then we'll just kind of see where it ends up at the end here. But I want to start off, I want to share with you real quickly this quote that I came across. I'm going to pull it up here if I can. I thought it was a great quote. I've never heard it before. Maybe you have. It actually comes from, let's see if I can remember this correctly, Charles Colson, which was, he was a member of Nixon's cabinet, I believe. I believe he was a member of the cabinet of Richard Nixon. I may get that wrong, but I think that's the case. Anyways, he was connected to all the Watergate. I don't want to go into all the history of that. If you don't know what Watergate is, Google it. But this whole mess that ended up causing Richard Nixon to resign his presidency. But I came across this quote. I thought it was fantastic. And just, I love quotes and love things that kind of that bring sort of a relevancy to Jesus. And here's the quote. This is what he said. He says, "I know the resurrection is a fact, and Watergate proved it to me." How? Because 11 men testified that they had seen Jesus raised from the dead. Then they proclaimed that truth for 40 years, never once denying it. Every one of them was beaten, tortured, stoned, or put into prison. They would not have endured that if it weren't true. Watergate embroiled 12 of the most powerful men in the world, and they couldn't keep alive for 3 weeks. You're telling me that 11 apostles could keep alive for 40 years? Absolutely impossible. I thought that was great. I mean, honestly, I thought that was just really, if you know anything about the Watergate scandal, but I mean, really any scandal, really. But the truth of that was just awesome. And I came across, I'm probably going to do this later on in another episode because I kind of love getting into sort of statistics from the standpoint of where people are, and there's a lot of it out there, a lot of data out there where people stand nowadays in relation to God and church and their belief in Jesus Christ. But I came across some things today that were sort of I don't know if you would say, I don't want to say alarming. I mean, it's interesting from the standpoint of how few people really believe that Jesus rose from the dead. And the lack of true belief, even among Christians, those that profess to be Christians, that believe that Jesus Christ rose from the dead. In fact, I will see if I can find it. Here it is. I found it. Here we go. This was part of the article, and it says the numbers in the U.S. are equally breathtaking, according to the State of Theology research study published by Lifeway Research. Only 47% of American adults strongly agree the physical bodily resurrection of Jesus Christ was an actual historical event. In 2022, global data pointed by the Barna Research Group, again, Barna Research and Lifeway Research are the two biggest sort of research groups in Christianity. They do tons of data, which is some of it's quite interesting. But anyways, the Barna research revealed that only 33% of teenagers believe that Jesus rose from the dead, and that was in 2022. So again, I mean, I think that's quite interesting. I would have never. I mean, 47% of Americans strongly agree. I guess some may. I guess that leaves room for some other. I guess that leaves some room there. But again, I just thought it interesting. I thought this was crazy too, that 1 in 4 people who claim to be Christians in the United Kingdom disavow the resurrection of Jesus completely. 1 in 4 people who claim to be Christians in the United Kingdom don't even believe Jesus rose from the dead. Crazy. So I would like to maybe get into a little bit of apologetics. We are sort of living in the golden age of apologetics. There's so much out there on YouTube, and I don't anyway try to kind of parallel those. There's some really good guys, really, really, really good apologetics right now that is out there, and they're doing a wonderful job, and no need for me to throw my hat in the ring. But we may do a little bit of apologetics regarding Jesus, but specifically this resurrection was interesting. But I thought that was a great quote, kind of put that into perspective. It says, "I know the resurrection is fact, and Watergate proved it to me." Why? Because 11 men testified that they had seen Jesus, and Jesus raised from the dead. They proclaimed the truth for 40 years, never once denying it. Every one of them was beaten, tortured, stoned, and put into prison. They would not have endured that if it weren't true. Watergate embroiled 12 of the most powerful men in the world, and they couldn't keep alive for 3 weeks. You're telling me that 11 apostles could keep alive for 40 years? That's absolutely impossible. So, anyways, I thought that was just a great quote to kind of put it into perspective. And just, I think it's something, the resurrection of Jesus Christ, the New Testament church was very resurrection-centric. modern church has become very facility building centric. The church of the original church of the New Testament was very resurrected centric. In fact, I had this also here. Let me see if I can find this. Yeah. 1/3 of the gospel record deals with the last 8 days of Jesus's life. So of all the chapters, of all the gospel chapters, so 89 chapters in the gospel, 1/3 of those. So let me see if that's, see if they actually put it here in this data. Hold on one second. Let me, I know they put it here somewhere. I can find it, but just basically it's 1/3. So 89 chapters in the Gospels. If you don't know what the Gospels are, that's Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Those are the 4 books of the Bible that we get the most information about Jesus, his life, his birth, death, and birth, life, and death, resurrection. But of all those 89 chapters, 1/3 of them deal with the last 8 days of Jesus's life. So it's just that can kind of show you how much is dedicated. In fact, only 5 chapters deal with the first 30 years. Then the bulk deals with the last 3 years of his life. But then again, 1/3. So let's just count them up here. 2, 4, 6. They have kind of like a chart here. That's why I'm counting. 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20, 24, 26, 27. So yeah, it's a little under a third, I guess, but almost 1/3. 27 of the chapters of the Gospels deal with the last 8 days. So anyways, for what it's worth, I thought that was really kind of a great quote, bringing back to the reality and the relevancy of Jesus Christ. But I really, hopefully down the road, we'll get into a little bit of apologetics when it comes to Jesus. Again, not apologetics when it comes to theology and all those things, but specifically when it comes to Jesus. So I want to do something here because I mentioned it back on, what episode was that we did that? It was episode 2, I think it was. It was the post Super Bowl episode that we discussed the He Gets It ad on, it was episode 2. I just pulled it up here and made sure I was correct. So the He Gets This ad that was done, excuse me, a little dry throat and I don't have any water. So the He Gets This ad that was done for the Super Bowl, and it was a surprisingly controversial, especially among Christians, with the washing of feet. And I don't want to get back into that. I kind of shared a little bit what I thought on that episode. Not going to go back and repeat all that. But anyways, so we talked about that and kind of discussed that. But I wanted to do something for a moment, and there is, I'm not making an endorsement. That's not what I'm trying to do today. I'm not endorsing because I, to be honest with you, can't say that, like with anything, I guess you can't say that it's 100% pure. Maybe there's some hidden things in it. I get it. So I'm not making an endorsement. So, I mean, if you want to quote and say, well, I'm endorsing this, that's not what I'm doing. But I think it's worth at least looking at this because I think there is something within the framework here that I think it's worth discussion. And that is the He Gets Us website. And again, if you don't know what He Gets Us is, just Google it. It's a group that's been put together. It's a non-denominational group that's just simply about spreading the message of Jesus Christ. And they have spent literally millions of dollars on ads in sports. And I mean, just amazing stuff. They have some amazing stuff. I'll give it to them. But it's been quite interesting. But anyways, you go to the website. And again, I don't know where you stand on it. I mean, to be honest with you, I'm behind it. I don't know if necessarily I'm endorsing it. I'm behind anything that promotes the message of Jesus. In fact, even Jesus said one day to a group of his own followers that got all worked up because someone that they didn't approve of was spreading the message of Jesus, and they're like, well, we did a good thing. We stopped him because he's not approved. And Jesus said, no, whoever's not against us is for us. He basically said, leave him alone. So anything that can promote. In fact, I've got an episode queued up here that maybe next week or the week after we're going to talk about where we're going to look at some non-Christian voices that are talking about Jesus in a very positive way. But anyways, I'm for anything that promotes Jesus. I really am. I mean, in the world we live in, that's so divisive, and it's so, I mean, my goodness, you can't seem to be for anything without it causing someone to want to cancel you or cut you off. Anytime that somebody is willing to promote the name of Jesus and that makes any headway, I'm all for that. I love that. So again, I love HeGetsUs from that standpoint. But I want to read through on their website. I'm actually on their website now, but I want to read through. If you go to their website and if you go to the tab, it's under the FAQ tab, the frequently asked question tab. The question is, what is your agenda? And if you click down on that, there's an extension to that, and it's a full page here. I want to read through some of that. Again, a little bit of read and react. Again, this is not so that you will go do it or you become a promoter. HeGetsUs, so that you start posting their ads. That's not the point. The point is, I think there's some very, very vital, very, very, very relevant and very important points that are made on this page that I think are worth exploring. So we'll read here a little bit, and then we'll kind of read and react as we do it. This is what it says under what is their agenda. This is the start. How did the story of a man who taught and practiced unconditional love, peace, and kindness, who spent his life defending the poor and the marginalized, a man who forgave his killers while they executed him unjustly, whose life inspired a radical movement that is still impacting the world thousands of years, how did this man's story become associated with hatred and oppression for so many people? And how might we all rediscover the promise of his love, of the love his story represents? Those are the questions at the heart of HeGetsUs. Now, I don't know where you stand on it, but I don't know how you don't look at that and go, okay, I agree with that. Again, I'm not suggesting that there may not be flaws or holes in the HeGetsUs. That may come out down the road that there's some hidden things. I get it. I'm not suggesting that but you can't read that without going, I get it. And especially the part, how did this man's story become associated with hatred and oppression for so many people? To be honest with you, I mean, to me, that's an easy question to answer. In fact, there is tons of research out there now that's basically saying that the big problem is not Jesus. The big problem is his followers. So, I mean, kind of to me, the reason why this man's story has become associated with hatred and oppression for so many people is because it's the people that are confessing that they are followers of Jesus Christ are the ones that are doing the most damage. And so to me, that's that's why when I felt I kind of desired to start this podcast. It's like, if we could just strip it all away and get to the core of it, the just Jesus part, I think we could discover something just transformational. And so we just got to get some stuff out of the way. And the biggest thing you got to get out of the way is a lot of religious stuff that gets in the way. And religion, to me, religion and man kind of go hand in hand. And so it's kind of at the heart of it. But let's continue. So we've done a lot of homework in our culture. We've researched how people feel about each other and what they think about Jesus and Christianity. We've connected with thousands of people of various faith traditions and those who claim no religion. We spoke to all kinds of people, different backgrounds, beliefs, and yes, political affiliations. I love that. And this is what we've learned. From politics to sexuality and religion, so many of us feel like our values, beliefs, and identities are under attack by the ideological others around us. Many perceive those who differ with them on an issue of justice, dignity, and humanity as not just wrong or misguided, but are also evil as enemies. We often see these others as closed-minded, selfish, hypocritical, and if we're honest, many of us respond in kind. And I will be honest with you, I think that's, and again, this is not to get on some kind of soapbox, but let's just talk about it for a second, because this is a part of all of it. That last part, the many who those of a different issues, humanity, whatever it is, dignity, are not just wrong or misguided, but they're also evils, enemies. We often see the others as closed-minded, selfish, or hypocritical. Honestly, that to me, that screams of social media. That's what social media has done. I mean, we've always had different issues. We've always had, different sides of the issue. I mean, we talked about it last couple of times here on this podcast. I mean, Jesus showed up at a time with tremendously divisive issues. They had political issues. They had religious issues. He had tons of it. But I mean, we live in a world now where issues have become, throw gasoline on it. And it is just, the intensity of the issue is even 10 times greater than it was. I mean, you can't say anything without it being sort of made bigger than it is. And let's be honest, there's a lot of people out there with big mouths that make it bigger than it is. And so, again, I think that point, very valid. These points are very, very valid. And I think at the core of that is the fact that Jesus has not come to pick a side. Jesus is the side. I'm going to say that again because I think maybe you missed it. Jesus has not come to affirm, or Jesus did not come to affirm or to pick a side. Jesus is the side. So it's not that you have to, Jesus is for this, or Jesus is for that group, or Jesus is against this group. It's ultimately, Jesus is the side. That's what, again, go back to the name, it's Just Jesus Podcast. That's what one of the messages I'd like to promote with this podcast to a lot of people out there that just, maybe they're misguided or just don't realize is that, listen, this is not about any side. This is about Jesus. And I will tell you, and again, there's so many things here. I'll try to be as brief today because I could make each one of these I could go into depths with each one of these, but to be honest with you, that's sort of the issue I think right now with a lot of the messages that are out there, and that is we are very keen to tell what we're against. We're very keen on telling us what we stand against, but what if we choose to talk about what we stand for? And when we talk about Jesus, instead of saying, well, we believe in Jesus and therefore here's what we're against. We believe in Jesus and here's what we're for. Forgiveness, let's start there because he forgave. Love, because he said love one another. Compassion, because he was the ultimate embodiment of compassion. Let's start there. That's what we're really for. We're for love, forgiveness, compassion, hope, all those things. And if we start there, then to me the message changes. So this continues, and they do a good job here writing this and kind of capturing not only the message but also capturing sort of where we are and kind of the world and how does Jesus fit into all this. And this is what they say, continue reading, is the more ideologically defensive we become, the more we are willing to sacrifice things like kindness, patience, and the respect and dignity of others for the sake of victory. I just got to pause for a second because, I don't know where you stand on this, but you can't read this without agreeing with some of this stuff. Come on. Put your walls down for a second. This is some stuff here that strikes to the heart of the matter. The more ideologically defensive we become, the more we are willing to sacrifice things like kindness, patience, and respect and dignity of others for the sake of victory. That is a true statement. The righteous ends justifying the dehumanizing means. Man, I need like a drop the mic button on this, on my sound effect board here. I don't have one. I need to get one. I do have this one. What's love? That's the true thing. What does love have to do with it? It has to do with all of it. It's the truth. Because Jesus is love, and it's true. We have sacrificed the righteous ends justifying the dehumanizing means. We no longer look at somebody who doesn't agree with us as saying, hey, listen, look, we don't agree, but we can still find some common ground here. We can still find some peace. We look at it now as not only are you wrong, but we dehumanize them in their own world. And that's sort of the point, is to go back into the story of Jesus. We just talked about this. I mean, Jesus says to this group of people, if a Roman soldier asks you to carry his pack 1 mile, carry it 2. My goodness, if I ask a Republican to go out to dinner with a Democrat, we'd lose our minds. It's just crazy now how we have justified the sort of divisiveness, and we've lost the message in all of that. If we're truly, the only thing that can fix any of this, the only thing that can bring all this back to normalcy is Jesus. That's why I'm part of the reason I'm doing this is just Jesus. Let's just get to Jesus. So let's read that again, because it's worth reading again. The more ideologically defensive we become, the more willing we are to sacrifice things like kindness, patience, and respect and dignity of others for the sake of victory. The righteous ends justifying the dehumanizing means. And it's tearing us apart. We experience it in politics, in the workplace, in schools, and even churches. Man, that is just, I mean, it's true. Not only is it politics, which I guess it's always been there, right? You had two sides of things. I mean, it's sort of built into the Constitution of the United States. We have two sides of an issue. That's even now becoming a global thing where there's always kind of multiple sides. And you know, you always had people in the workplace on different viewpoints and all that. In school, you know, you always had that happen. But that's even in church. And this is what it says. And at the heart of the conflict is a fundamental disagreement about what it means to be good. Throughout our shared history, Jesus has represented the ultimate good that humankind is capable of aspiring to. And though some no longer believe in God, most are still compelled by the idea of a person capable of unconditional love for others despite their difference. But many of us simply cannot reconcile the idea of that person with the way our culture experiences religion, with the way our culture experiences religion today. Whether it's hypocrisy and the discrimination in the church, or scandals, both real and perceived, among religious leaders, or the polarization of our politics, many have relegated Jesus from the world's greatest love story to just another tactic used to intensify our deep cultural divisions. Man. Can I just read that again? I'm sorry, maybe I'm overreacting here, but it's worth reading again. Throughout our shared history, Jesus has represented the ultimate good that humankind is capable of aspiring to. Now, I will say on this one, I kind of disagree a little bit, because we are not able to do those good things on our own, but it's through him. Jesus said in John chapter 15 that he was the vine, we're the branch, that we can do nothing without him. So I don't think that's what they're saying, that we can go out and do this, but I think, they're trying to kind of be a little more open with their message. And I'm not faulting that, but I will say this part, I'm just going to go straight to it and say, you know what? Okay, Jesus did represent the ultimate good that humankind is capable of aspiring to. I don't know if we're capable of aspiring to that good. Let's be honest. You leave humans on their own measure. We don't do a very good job. We're not that good. Look around. We don't do a good job. So I will say to that point, yes, Jesus did represent the ultimate good, but we can only achieve that through him. And we can do nothing without him. He even said that. Without me, you can do nothing. But I'll continue reading. Although some no longer believe in God, most are still compelled by the idea of a person capable of unconditional love for others despite their differences. But many of us are simply but many of us simply cannot reconcile the idea of that person with the way our culture experiences religion today. Amen and amen. Whether it's hypocrisy and discrimination in the church, not outside the church, in the church, or scandals both real and perceived among religious leaders, again, in the church, or the polarization of our politics. Many have relegated Jesus from the world's greatest love story, and here we go, to just another tactic used to intensify our deep cultural divisions. That is so true, because we can't get our point across to win our point through argument or logic. Then we turn and we start using Jesus as the weapon to manipulate or to discriminate or to make our point. And then we say it's all in the name of truth. Well, don't forget, Jesus was all grace and truth. So while you're wielding your sword of truth, also remember that he was fully grace as well. That's what made Jesus so amazing. That's why Jesus was so wonderful and beautiful, because he was all both. And I said earlier, when we asked the question, how did this man's love story become associated with hatred and oppression for so many people? There's your answer right there. The answer is right there. I mean, that's the answer to me. It's because many of us simply cannot reconcile the idea of that person with the way our culture experiences religion today. That's the reason why. It's what we do it. In fact, I'll get to that just a second. Whether it's hypocrisy or discrimination in the church, scandals both real and perceived among religious leaders, or the polarization of our politics, many have relegated Jesus from the world's greatest love story to just another tactic used to intensify a deep cultural division. That is truth. In fact, I came across this. Yeah, where is it? It's Lifeway Research. Let's see if I can find it. Did I lose it? It was a Lifeway Research. Yeah, here we go. What causes people to doubt Christianity? Again, this is Barna. This is actually Barna. The number one thing that gets people to doubt Christianity, it's not even Jesus and the fact that they believe Jesus is real or perceived or whatever it is. The number one reason why people doubt Christianity is the hypocrisy of religious people. This is stats. This is stats. In fact, they put three categories here: Christian, other faiths. So I'm guessing that other faiths include any non-Christian. So like Jews, Muslims are those. And then finally, they have a no faith category. So in the Christian category, the number two reason Christians doubt Christianity is the hypocrisy of religious people. In the other faith category, the number one reason why people doubt Christianity, and when I say Christianity, I'm going to use not just Christianity, doubt the validity of Jesus Christ, as was kind of stated in HeGetsUs. So I'm not just using Christianity as a religious term of going to church, but the fact of embracing this idea of the relevancy of Jesus Christ in the world today. So the number one reason there is because the hypocrisy. But in the no faith cat, these are people that have no professed affiliation with any faith. Almost half of them say that the number one reason, not science, not the Big Bang, not all the stuff that usually we throw around as why people don't believe in God or believe in and practice a faith in Jesus Christ. The number one reason, according to this survey conducted in 2022 with 2005 teens and adults. So almost half of them said the reason why they doubt Christianity is because of the hypocrisy of religious people. Think about that. And of these, all five, none of them doubt Christianity because of Jesus. None of them. None of them. So again, let's go back to this again. Let's read it again. Many cannot reconcile the idea of the person with the way the culture experiences religion today. It plays out. This is the kind of stuff we've got to address. We got to talk about, because if we continue to pretend it's not a real issue, we just continue to dig ourselves a bigger hole. And those that profess to know Jesus just become more ingrained in the fact that we are right, everyone else is wrong. And in some ways, it just exposes a greater sense of hypocrisy. So here's the question. So this is continue. How did we get here? This is what they ask. How did we get here? And what might we learn from the example that Jesus to help move beyond the animosity we feel towards one another? How can we rediscover the life and teachings of Jesus, the world's most radical love activist? This is our agenda here at HeGetsUs, to move beyond the mess of our current culture movement to a place where all of us are invited to rediscover the love story of Jesus. Christians and non-Christians and everybody in between. All of us. I mean, again, I'm not suggesting go out and buy a HeGetsUs. You can't even buy a HeGetsUs t-shirt. They were giving them away. They gave away so many, they actually ran out. But I mean, I'll be honest with you. I don't know, peel back the layers. I don't know what they're doing. They could be, I don't know what there's a lot of people out there that has a lot of theories on the things behind HeGetsUs. I get all that. And maybe all this stuff on their website's just the lie. And I'm not suggesting you go to the website and you just, take it hook, line, and sinker. But I will tell you, the way this was, when I read this and I'm like, wow, this is, because I get this. I'm with you on this. I'm on board with this. Because I feel the same way. Hence, just Jesus. That's what the whole point of this was about. This just Jesus. Let's strip it all away. Let's not try to focus people to try to get them to a specific religious or theological affiliation. Let's not get them to go to a particular church. What if we just talk about Jesus? Let's have a conversation about Jesus. Whoever you are, let's talk about it. Because the statistics are showing that people don't want to talk about church, but they're open to talking about Jesus. In fact, I think I pulled that up there. As you can tell, I've had been doing a lot of looking at all this research. Here. How do people feel about Jesus and his message? Get this. 71% of people surveyed say they have a positive opinion of the teaching of Jesus. So here's the same three categories, right? It was the Christian, other faith, and the no faith. Of them, 84% of Christians had a positive viewpoint of the teaching of Jesus. Kind of crazy to me why that's not 100%, but that just kind of shows you just how much of a mess Christianity is. I mean, come on, the people that profess to be followers of Christianity, you can't even get 100% agree that Jesus, the teaching of Jesus, is something positive. That's not good. That should be maybe 99%, because there's always one bad apple, right? 84%, I mean 16% out of a crowd of 100 people, 100 Christians, 16 of them don't even have a favorable opinion of Jesus, and yet they confess to be Christians. I will tell you, on that one, I have to kind of scratch my head. But here's the bigger stat for me. Of the no faith, 40% actually had a favorable opinion of Jesus Christ. This was, again, the no faith, or the atheists, the non-affiliated, the agnostics. These are the people that we would consider to be sort of hardline anti-Jesus, but almost 40%. I mean, again, it still means 60% did not, but come on, 40%. That's pretty impressive. I'll get on the other end of it. I thought this was kind of interesting. The same survey. What is your opinion about mega churches? I thought this was actually interesting. This was actually surprisingly. This was actually surprising to me how strong. Only 20% of Christians had a favorable opinion of mega churches. 17% of no faith, but only 8%. 8% of the no faith group had a favorable opinion. So anyway, I thought that was quite interesting. And any other thing that kind of stuck out at me, and again, this is a Just Jesus podcast, so not getting this, but I thought this was actually interesting. Only 33% of the Christian surveyed had a favorable opinion of pastors or priests. So I mean, 67% of Christians don't have a favorable opinion of a pastor or priest. I mean, again, all this is telling, and my point, I'm saying all this again, not to get into statistics, because I may have lost you on some of the statistics, but that is this: The reason for that, for me, in my opinion, the reason why that's the case is because we've lost the message of all this and the message of Jesus. The message is not Joel Wright. The message is not a church. The message is not a religion or a doctrine, but we've used all these things as a weapon, or we've used all these platforms to promote personalities, because ultimately in all this, Jesus has become a vehicle for our own agenda, and we've lost the message of just Jesus. That's just what it is, okay? Let's just get straight out to it. We have all this because we've lost the message. I started in the beginning. How does 11 guys spend 40 years through getting beaten and stoned and everything else imaginable of the sun, 40 years profess and believe something? Because it's true, it's real. But that was the message. That was simplicity of it. It was just Jesus. It wasn't about promoting anything more than that. It was just Jesus. And my point to you and I, as a believer in Jesus Christ, as someone who confesses not only to believe in him, but confesses to have a relationship with Jesus Christ. And I talk with him every day, and he talks with me, and I have a wonderful, beautiful life that I live with Jesus Christ, and he's peace and joy and everything that you can imagine and much more in my own life. That's because it's him. And if that's the message, and if you can understand that, or whoever you are, or maybe whoever, someone you know, that's the message that needs to be. That's the issue. That's the problem, and the statistics play it out. So again, going back to the point, don't run out and just start going through HeGetsUs and say, well, that guy on the podcast said it was good, so I'm just gonna. I wasn't saying that. I'm saying that what was the point that were made in this agenda writing, I agree with. Not only, I agree with, because I believe the same thing. I'm standing behind the same thing. So, anyways, something to ponder. I think, to me, that's just continue. That's why I feel like we got to get this just Jesus message out to a world, because I believe the world is looking for a message that's just Jesus and nothing more. I said this back in the episode too. That's why I think you look at the success of things like The Chosen. These have been massive, massive successes because they've done a wonderful job of just making it about Jesus. They haven't really, there's no hidden agenda. If there is, it's very hidden, because it's just been pure and simple. They've done a wonderful job. So, just a challenge. But let me ask you this. Let me challenge you one more with this. And that is the 5 teachings of Jesus, 5 teachings from Jesus that will improve your life, will change your life today. Just 5 simple teachings. And if you and I, as followers of Jesus, or people that confess to know Jesus, or you're on here and you want to know Jesus, here's a great place to start. Here's 5 things you can start to do right now that are some of the fundamental teachings of Jesus. And I said this too a while back. People love to study the Bible. A lot of people like to read the Bible. All that's great. I'm a proponent of that. I think we all need to read the Bible more. It's amazing. We live in a world where we have more access to the Bible, but people are more and more biblically illiterate. But I will tell you, if you're going to start to read the Bible, you might want to start with the most important figure in all the Bible, and that's Jesus Christ. And if you're going to start somewhere, why don't you start with the words of Jesus Christ? And if you can get those down, if you can start to live those things out, then you're qualified to move on from there. But until you get the words of Jesus imprinted in your life, and you get the words of Jesus a part of you, and you can start to live that out every day by his grace in your life, and you don't really need to be qualified to move on to anything else. You don't need to, there's people get off into all this crazy stuff. They want to tell you about, the 17-headed beast in Revelation and all this crazy stuff in Scripture, but they're not living the simplicity of Jesus' teaching. So do me a favor, start with the red letters. Not that the red letters are more important, but that's the words of Jesus. They gave them in red letters in some Bible versions to help us follow along easier. They weren't written in red. They were written in red. They were written with the blood of Jesus, but they were written in red in your Bible to give you an indication that these were quotes from Jesus. But I'm a big proponent that if we can't follow the words of Jesus, we're not qualified to start following anything else. That's kind of the start. That's where we need to start. Once you become proficient in the words of Jesus, you're qualified to move on to something else. So here's 5 fundamental teachings. Ready? 5 fundamental teachings that you can start with right now. Get these down. Start living these every day by the Lord's grace. Not perfectly, because you'll never do them perfectly, but put these 5 things at the top of your list. If you start here, then you can be qualified to move on to the next group. Number 1, love God and love your neighbor. Because Jesus said this, love the Lord God with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. This is the first and greatest commandment. And the second is this, love your neighbor as yourself. So, number 1 rule, make Jesus number 1 in everything. Make Jesus number 1 in your life. Make Jesus number 1 in your heart. Make Jesus number 1 in your desires and your passions and your dreams and your hopes. And love your neighbor as yourself. Start there. That's a good place to start. Number 2, we call it the golden rule. The Bible never called it the golden rule, but it is a great rule. And it could be golden because Jesus said it. Jesus said, whatever you would that men should do to you, do you to them. Treat others like you want to be treated. That's not just something your grandmother told you. That's the words of Jesus Christ. Start there. So what is it? Make Jesus number 1. Love your neighbor as yourself. And how do I love my neighbor as myself? Well, it starts with treating them like I want to be treated. Don't be rude and a jerk and expect people to treat you kindly. Walk around going, man, I don't have any friends, or nobody's ever kind to me. You might want to start in the mirror and see if you're the problem. You know, when you can't find anybody that likes you, it's not their problem. You might want to look at the common denominator. The common denominator is you. It's supposed to be about just Jesus, but it is. This is just Jesus. But it's true. I mean, Jesus said, treat others like you want to be treated. We complain, well, this person, this, and this person, I can't lay this, and I just, blah, 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 blah. It's just everybody's against me. Maybe you need to stop and realize there's a common denominator in all this, honey, and it's you. It's you. Number 3. So make God number 1. Love your neighbor as yourself. Second one, treat others like you want to be treated. These are the words of Jesus. These aren't my words. These are not bumper stickers. These are not keychains. These are the teachings of Jesus. Let's start here. Number 3, have faith. Believe. Have faith have faith. Believe in Jesus Christ. Have faith. What is faith? Faith is action. Faith is profession. And not only is profession, but doing. Jesus said, the wise one is the one that not only hears what I say, but does what I say. So it's not just about professing I believe in Jesus, or I wear a cross or have a cross tattooed on me, therefore I believe in Jesus Christ. To believe in Jesus is to do what he says. And we already started with some things he told you to do. Love God, make God number 1. Everything you do. Nothing else matters more than him. He's the top of your list in everything. Your time, your talent, your treasure, your desires, your passions, everything. He's at the top. Love your neighbor as yourself. Treat others like you want to be treated. Believe. Faith in action. Number 4, talk to Jesus. Talk to him. Jesus modeled a communication with God. He told us to pray. So if you're going to follow him, you also must pray. Pray, when I say that, it's not a religious thing. It's not something you do with your hands folded on your knees in some kind of pious reverence. You might do that and it's okay, but really prayer is a conversation. Prayer is talking to God. Prayer is talking like I'm talking to you. It's simple. Prayer can start with just simply a conversation. I heard someone say one time, and I thought it was a great idea, and it's really simple. You want to know how to pray? You want to start to pray? Put in your headphones, like your Apple headphones or your Bluetooth, and pray and talk to Jesus like he's on the other side of that, like you're connected to somebody on the side. You got a problem? Pick up the phone. Talk to Jesus. Now you're like, who's not on the other side? No, he's not on the other side, but more importantly, he's right there. He doesn't need a phone. He's right there. But talk to him. We're so used to communicating that way. We can talk and communicate in such a beautiful way when we pick up a phone or put headphones in. We can talk. No one thinks it's weird. So you know what? If you think it's weird for praying, put the headphones in. Someone thinks, wow, they're having a really deep conversation with somebody named Jesus. Maybe it's HeGetsUs. I don't know who it is, but whoever they're talking to is important. Talk to him. And what's even amazing, if you listen, he'll talk back. And this is the fifth one. This is what I think is most important is forgive, freely forgive. Jesus practiced forgiveness. He modeled forgiveness. He spoke forgiveness. At his greatest moment of crisis, he forgave. In fact, he told his disciples one day, he said, how often should we forgive somebody? And Jesus said 70 times 7. 490 times. Start there. 490 times. I don't think Jesus is saying, you know what, only forgive 490 times, because you might say, well, they've done more than 490 things. Well, he wasn't using that as a number that when you reach that number, you don't have to forgive. He's basically saying you can't put a number on forgiveness. Forgiveness is an incalculable number. Forgive. So if you're talking about just Jesus, let's start with following Jesus. Let's start by talking about doing what Jesus told us to do. Number one, make him number one. Love your neighbor as yourself. Treat others like you want to be treated. Believe, but faith in action. Number 4, talk to Jesus. Talk to him. Not through a church, a priest, a pastor, but talk to him personally, you and him. And the 5th one, learn to be a forgiver. Learn to forgive. Because he modeled that. So, anyways, a little different today. I think we were kind of all over the map a little bit. A good way, I guess. I thought it was a good way. But we were all over the map a little bit with today's episode. But kind of more stuff to talk about. And got a couple more things that working on for next episode. And some changes. And I really just kind of see where things go. These are kind of stepping out further with this message. But again, like I said, I want to get a little more momentum going before we do that. But encourage you, again, if you haven't liked, subscribed, or shared, please do so. It really helps kind of spread this message further and further. The message of just Jesus. But thank you for listening. Episode number 7. Thank you for the support and encouragement, for the comments. It's greatly appreciated. It really does. It just inspires and encourages me to keep going and just dig deeper to make these more relevant and more encouraging, more impactful to you and for those of you that you would like to share this with. Because I do believe you can't go wrong with the message of Jesus. So, just Jesus. That's all it's about. Today, tomorrow, forever. Until next time, God bless.